I just resent it now. Any joy? I'm just here now. I just resent it. Any joy? How do I find that, mate? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, if I send the email. The meeting ID 843. 843 0908 7494. Yeah. Uppercase Echo. The mother. And then 4. Yeah, that's it. Enter. Okay, 1 second, mate. Participants. Charlie Victor, lowercase, uppercase, all uppercase now. Echo, number 8. M for mother, number 4. Admit, yeah. So you've joined, that's great. Perfect. All right, mate. Great. Perfect. So, brilliant. So, got one person watching already. That's probably you, isn't it? Probably. What's it on? Yeah, that's right. What time's it finished tonight? Yeah. I think Tiger's just teed off probably 20 minutes ago. Ah, right. So we've got 2 people online. Let me know who you are, folks. Good evening to you. I'm also going to say on the side here, Masters predictions. Oops. Yeah, who you thinking? I'm going for John Rahm. I like John Rahm. Really? I don't know. I just think it's going to be an underdog. Really? Abraham Hunter, he's got no fear of that course at the moment. Okay, are you going to pick them? Yeah, he's never played there before. And that's quite common now, these young guys, isn't it? Abraham Hunter. Well, he's leading at the minute, I think, isn't he? Yeah. I had him down. Well, I had 4 of them to start with. Okay. I had him, John Rahm. Then I had Justin Thomas, who's playing well. Yeah, he's about third now, isn't he? The top 10 now, isn't he? Was he 400 show yesterday? Before, I think he finished maybe 1 over today. Oh, right. Yeah, he's playing well. So, Rich, why are you going to go for Paul Casey? Do you reckon he's going to do it? Richard Marsden's picked Paul Casey. Who's going to close that door, which is making the brew? Yeah, Paul Casey's playing well. He's got well his eye, hasn't he? Casey's played great. It was 700 show yesterday. Yeah, unbelievable, isn't it? Wow, it's going to be interesting to see how these predictions pan out, actually, because if people are going to watch this later on, then we'll see what the predictions are. Well, listen, mate, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for offering to do this. Last time's session that we had worked out really well. And lots of people watched it afterwards. It got quite a few dozen hits, actually. And I think there's lots of parts to it which I think people really enjoyed. The mental health aspect, how you're going to keep yourself positive through the winter time. Yeah. Last time we talked about the mental health aspect of how you're going to keep yourself positive through the lockdown. Now, this lockdown where I live in southwest London has been far less observed, so I think it's going to be a little easier. It's crap, isn't it? I think it's going to be far. Yeah, it's weird. It's not like a real lockdown, is it? It doesn't feel any different. But obviously, we're not going out because obviously you can't play golf and stuff, and that's the only thing that's really changed. Yeah. In my life. Yeah, it's not good actually. It's the gym either, but it just feels weird. So how are you going to keep yourself positive and upbeat and active through the lockdown this time, especially with the dark mornings and the dark nights? Yeah, that's it. We've only got a certain amount of time in the days now, so got to get up quite early and just make sure you do everything in the morning, really, and then you can just chill in the afternoon. And that's what I'm doing. So I'm doing my training in the mornings. And I've just got borrowed a Flightscope off of a friend of mine. Now, for those guys that don't know, that the Flightscope is a portable a video, like radar, a launch monitor. It's called. I forget its name then. Yeah. So Mike, obviously, is a professional, and he's hitting balls in his back garden into a net. But that can get quite limiting, really. What you can achieve from that. So there's only a sort of so far that can go, isn't there? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of sort of things that you can't quite see what's going on. I mean, as you know, you can swing, have a really good feeling swing, and it might not be working for you. So it's just nice to have some data as to what's actually happening and what's going on with the ball. But for me this year, I'm trying to work on, this winter anyway, I've got 3 different things to work on this winter, but at the moment I'm focusing on my start line. Yeah. Once we come out of lockdown, I had a really good sort of season. Yep. So that work sort of paid off. So it did help just hitting balls, but other things sort of crept in from it as well, Well, I had a load of people who came back for lessons from after lockdown, and it split very much into 2 camps. Either they were really, really struggling and developed some very, very. Hi, Cohen. Nice to see you. Had really bad new problems, like really bad, really strange. But people who had developed a lot of sort of very odd bad habits. Then there was some people who came for lessons after doing the online tutorials. I did about say 2 or 3 a week. DJ is going to win it for Cohen. Good bet, DJ. Yeah, he's going to be there. Oh, without a doubt. And the thing is, he likes firing at the pins, doesn't he? He likes going straight in for those flags. And like I said before, those moist grooves. He's target golf, 100%. Yeah, absolutely right. It's quite funny because he's been interviewed the other day and he said, "What do you like about the traditions of Augusta National?" Augusta National. You see it? He says, "I just like the sandwiches." He said, "What type of?" And he said, DJ is not the brightest tool in the box. So it's quite a sort of a blunt thing to say. And then he says, DJ couldn't spell ox if you gave him the O as a head start. But you don't have to be brains of Britain, right, to be a top pro. But I think for golf, he's got the perfect mentality, hasn't he? I don't think he really cares. It's sort of a bit like water off a duck's back with him, isn't it? So we're talking then about how you keep yourself occupied and how you keep yourself sort of fit and active during the lockdown. What happens when you get to say 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon? The night starts getting a bit dark, and that's when I sort of that's when it starts hitting me. I think this is a little bit boring now. Have a drink or something, Yeah, I mean, it is quite easy to slip into that sort of just go sit on the sofa and watch TV, isn't it? Yeah, very quickly. But I've tried to make myself busy, so I'm leaving all my house chores till the evening. So you treat yourself in the morning with golf and hitting balls and doing your gym work? Yeah. So while it's daytime and you can go outside, I was hitting balls till, I don't know, probably half 4. Well, when I spoke to you earlier, that was pretty much it. So like o'clock.
Well, that's good.
A bit dark then, but.
Flightscope, and so he's hitting balls into his net. And hitting balls into a net is great because you get a feeling of the swing and what have you. It's really, if you have a garden at home, I know quite a few of the on-course guys actually put up some like blankets and they're hitting balls into blankets. His surname, you know, Kate. Kate Sermon, that's right. She did loads of stuff in her garden. She was doing like all sorts of exercise and what have you. So if you have got the space, especially, it's key if you want to hit balls into the net that you actually have a specific target. And the way you pick that target is that you stand behind the golf ball, look at the net, and see where would a perfectly straight ball flight go. It's very easy to end up hitting into the middle of a net, and that might not be the perfect target for where your ball is placed. Because if you look at a net and it's a square blanket, you end up sort of hitting into the very, very middle of the blanket. So make sure you can. I know you put the rods down and pointing in the right direction. But also, you should be a little bit more creative when you're in the nets, trying to hit high ones, low ones, left and right of that, and then move your body around to accommodate that. But that's where the Flightscope's so important, because you get all the data back, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what I've done is I've put an alignment stick actually behind the net, so I've got an actual target to hit at.
Super.
So like I've actually progressed to an actual golf net instead of a duvet now.
Are you treating yourself?
Yeah, last lockdown I went through 4 duvets, so it cost me a bit more than a net.
Do you know what? It's remarkable how we go through nets all the time at the club. It's remarkable how quickly they go. But we buy we buy fishing nets, 3 meter cube fishing nets. Then you put what's called a baffle net at the back there. But any work that you do, so I often, when I'm at home, I'm always picking up a club and putting my hands on the handle, and I fiddle around with just check where my hands are. You know, what I'm very conscious of is I don't get the club too much in my hand like that. I try and sort of make sure it's more in the base of the fingers there. And I'm always sort of putting my hands on the handle and familiarizing myself with my grip and my hand position, and then sort of waggle the club around a little bit, try and get a bit more sort of golf strength in your hands a little bit, move the club around, get some motion in there. You don't need an awful lot of room to familiarize yourself with the weight of the club. And if I hold the club vertically like this, it's very, very light. The minute I sort of tip it at an angle, of course, it feels heavier in the hands. And so you're always trying to feel the weight of the club and what's the best way of controlling it. Because at the top of your swing, you want those thumbs under the handle there. And if your thumbs are sort of off the handle, the club's going to slip around a bit. So just ensure that you are placing your hands on the handle. And then another thing you can do at home as well is just sort of check your grip pressure. What's the perfect way to hold that club to get it to feel best? If you're squeezing the life out of it, too much tension there, too much adrenaline, you get nothing out of it. So Cohen's just written, what you right there, Cohen, you said, I wish it was Rory though. He blew it in the first round. You know what? There's something about Rory, isn't there? He could shoot 65 tomorrow. Yeah, there's nothing to stop him from shooting a really low number.
The thing is, like, they were talking about him just now, actually, and they were saying that basically Rory is just, he gets off. He has a bad first round in every sort of Masters for the past few years, and then he comes good. But
yeah.
If he could just get out of the gate like he does on the last day, no one will get near him.
And the problem is where you think how many Masters winners have a sort of a pedestrian sort of first round, might shoot 1 under, 2 under, 3 under, and then do all the good rounds afterwards. But what did he shoot yesterday, McElroy?
I think he was either level or 1 over.
Yeah, so he's like 7 or 8 off the pace. It's a massive gap, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially.
Yeah, I mean, even right now, like, as they were saying yesterday, I think it might have been Paul McGinley was saying that if you're not them conditions, you will never ever get like how soft it was.
Oh, really?
He was saying, these best players in the world, if they're not shooting under par there, they're not going to make the weekend, you know.
But there's a great. Cohen's just saying that McElroy shot 66.
Oh, did it?
Yes, if you think 7 under's leading or whatever it is, 7 under's leading now, he shot 6 under par today, so he's only a couple off the pace now, isn't he?
That's the thing. Imagine if he could get out of the gate like just doing a couple of 3 under. I mean, he's leading.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Because he's like when he's on, like I could watch him all day. His swing is just
it's incredible. I actually saw him live a few times. He's not a very big guy. I mean, he looks quite pumped up on the TV now. I think he's definitely put some muscle on in the lockdown period.
Well, I was actually on the range with him at the Scottish Open last year. It's just different time.
And he's not a big guy. He's not particularly tall and sort of bulky, is he?
No, he's smaller than me, but he hits it just so far. He's just got this fluid swing. It's just effortless, but so much power. It's unbelievable.
Well, what he does is he's one of the very few guys who has the club going up and down exactly the same plane all the way up and down. So there's no sort of big quirks or movements in his swing which is sort of need a rebalancing. So when you said they're being very fluid, if you look at Tiger talked about getting stuck a lot during his career, and that meant to Tiger having the club too far behind him. I'll try and do a demonstration in my kid's playroom here. Oops.
Does that mean he gets trapped?
Exactly right. So Tiger talks an awful lot about getting trapped. Now what that means, if you look at McElroy, the club stays to his side of his body up and down throughout his swing. And what Tiger would say, that the club sometimes got behind him like this. Either the club head got behind him or his hands got behind him. And he felt sort of trapped in his own way. If you look at McElroy, he seems to have so much space, and that's why he gets that fluidity in the swing.
He's got such a low body spin, hasn't he?
Oh, yeah. But I tell you, Di Clowelly, one of the other pros of the On-Course Foundation, tells a great story on McElroy. Di was obviously a fabulous player and very involved with some very, very good quality players who he's coached over the years. And he was saying he remembers doing the home counties training, and McElroy was there. He was just one of the sort of young, talented kids coming out of Ireland, Northern Ireland. And they're also hitting shots and playing balls and what have you, and they're chatting away. And Di says, looked at him, he said, I remember him. He said, but I don't remember him being particularly memorable. There was other kids who were sort of just as good as he was. And then he won an amateur event, quite a big amateur event. And then very quickly he started winning more and more and more. And he just went on fire with his confidence. And Di said they couldn't stop him from there. He said he just that one win catapulted his confidence. I'm sure I'm telling the story correct. I love it if Di was here now to sort of correct me on it if I got it wrong. But the theme's correct there. But you know yourself. Well, once you get a little bit of confidence, you get sort of something working in your game. You trust your swing a bit.
It's just twigged inside you, and it's just it sort of becomes natural.
Now, what's been your best scores? I mean, how many rounds have you played this year before lockdown?
So we got probably 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 or 7 tournaments in. And
have you played in those tournaments? How have you played in those tournaments?
Yeah, really good. I had 1, 2, 3 top 6s.
Very good.
Shot 2 under, 4 under. I think 1 under, maybe.
That's good going.
Yeah, it's been good. I've had some awful ones as well because I had a lot of leg issues. My legs stopped working, believe it or not.
Well, your prosthetic?
Prosthetic leg, yeah.
What, before the round or in the round?
Bit of both. It sort of went before, and then I tried to play, and then it packed up during the round, so I had to withdraw from one. It just gave way on me and just stopped working. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
I was 300 at the time as well on the 8th hole.
Don't tell me.
So, yeah, I was annoyed at that.
So you're 300 apart, and before you retired, obviously the leg was giving you a lot of stick, or were you aware that it was a problem?
Yeah.
Or? So I mean, you've got to deal with that. You're trying to make a decent score. You're trying to make your living, because that's obviously what you do as a professional golfer. And so what happened? It just gave way and just stopped working. You couldn't have any bend in the knee, or?
It literally just on the top of my backswing, it folded in underneath me and just stopped working. And nearly pulled my hip. It just went.
Oh my God. Well, how does the leg work during the swing? Does it have sort of flexibility, like a knee socket and a joint and sort of movement in it?
Yeah, so I've got a one-way, that way sort of forward and backwards in the knee, but I've got a little bit of side rotation in the actual ankle.
Okay.
It's only 15 degrees each way, but it's that 15 degrees that I need. So on my follow through, I can turn 15 degrees, so that way.
Oh, right.
And then it pulls my leg out. But it's funny because if you watch DeChambeau,
I was just about to say exactly the same thing.
His front leg comes out and it's exactly like mine. I've been doing that for years.
Well, it's a funny thing. It's a really funny thing because it's amazing how the golf swing evolves so much. What DeChambeau's doing now is basically working on the same stuff that the super long drive hitters have been working on for 10 years now. And the long drive hitters aren't just 20 stone and meat. They are 20 stones of pure muscle, but also real athletic pedigree and athletic skill. And the guys who are coaching them, one of whom I know really well, the guys who are coaching them are training them to do these incredibly scientifically resourced skills in the swing now. It's not just saying swing as fast as possible. And so that movement that you're talking about there about the left foot spinning, for years, tour pros tried to stop doing that because they thought they'd get more control. But what's happening now, when you look at the... so again?
Really, that's mad.
It's incredible. What's happened now is that the long drive guys are swinging a very, very certain, using what they call the ground, the forces within the swing now. We used to talk about you turn this way, you turn that way. What these guys do now is they talk about the forces within the swing. So let me just show you 1 second. So this is Bryson's foot, right? So during the swing, when he's swinging, let's say he's facing you but hitting the ball that way. As he swings, he spins that foot that way completely. Now, what you don't see is that where the direction the forces are coming from for that to happen. He's not literally just spinning on a pivot to the left heel. He actually pushes the weight from the toe to the heel, and as it pushes backwards, it also pushes up the leg, and it spins around. So there's a huge amount of range. Just like Joe Miller. Yeah, there's a huge amount of range in that left foot going from the toe to the heel, from the heel up the leg. The left hip socket always stays behind the ball for power hitters. So I'll just demonstrate what that means now. If you look at any of the power hitters, that left hip socket there is not sliding into impact. As they hit, that left hip socket comes this way, and that's where Bryson DeChambeau gets that spinning action on his foot there. If you spin that foot, what does it do? It puts that left hip out of the way, so it increases the speed at which the body turns this way. What we think is a turn, it's actually directional forces. So when you watch the tour pros now, the bombers, you see loads of activity in the legs. Look at Bubba Watson, huge activity in the legs. Now he's moving his legs backwards and forwards, but as this leg straightens, this back leg, in Bubba's case, it's his left leg that straightens up like that. If it straightens, it has to go high, doesn't it? It can't straighten and stay at the same height. That hip socket there, as it straightens, comes up. Now, if you think of this, right, when the pros are on the pressure plates, let's say I weigh 20 stone, for example, like one of the muscle guys, 20 stone. As I swing the club up in my swing, on the pressure plate, I no longer weigh 20 stone because the force and energy and weight of the swing is going up. So I now weigh 1/3 less according to the pressure plate. I weigh the same, but the pressure plate is receiving 1/3 less because my swing energy and forces are going upwards. As they go up, on the return to the ball and comes down, I now gain 2/3 of my weight. So my 20 becomes 30. 2/3 weight, 32, I beg your pardon. So as I come down, I crush down, and that's where I get the extra weight from, the extra power. So the pros, when they're swinging, the bodybuilders, the big guys, are going up on the way back and down on the way down. And as they come down, they pull themselves out of the way. So there's a huge amount of various different energy forces and directions to get that mega power. So Cohen's making a great...
That's exactly how I get my power. That exact what you just said there.
With what? The turn or the push up and down?
Getting my left hip out of the way so my left leg rotates. So that's how I transfer my weight. So on the pressure plate, believe it or not, I can get 73% of my body weight over onto my left-hand side.
73%? At what point at impact?
At impact, yeah.
Incredible.
And just after impact, that's when I my leg rotates around and then all the weight transfers to the back, and that's where I gain my power.
So it's really interesting. If I took a photograph of your swing at impact, what we see all players are behind the ball, but the motion of the swing is going forward. So your 73% is going forwards. We take a photograph.
Yeah.
Cohen's seen your swing. He says he reckons he's seen that power in your swing. You're just telling me here.
Is that sorry?
Cohen both says, I've seen that in your swing. All that power. Cohen making a great point here. He watched a video blog with Joe Miller's coach. That's Lee Cox, a friend of mine. From the Shire, and he spoke about Bryson's swing. Bryson's using a 5-degree driver. So this is a really interesting question, or a really interesting point about the 5-degree driver. So if we take the loft of a club on a driver, let's say it's measured from there to its loft, that's 5 degrees, then what DeChambeau does, and he takes that 5 degrees, he leans back, puts on a super high T-peg, and he hits the ball very much on the ascent. So when you swing a club up to meet the ball, that is now more like 10 degrees. And so the ball launches at more than 5 degrees, certainly. So then you say, well, why doesn't he just use a 10-degree lofted driver? Because then that would affect the spin rate of the ball. So what DeChambeau's doing there, he's taking as much loft as he can off the club, swinging up, and that prevents the ball from having too much spin. If the ball has too much spin, it'll go up very high and then land quite softly. So what DeChambeau does to carry it 320, 330, 340 yards and so on and so forth, is he takes the spin off the ball and keeps pushing the ball forwards. So it's quite clever sort of science, really. Take all the loft off of it, but swing in a way which creates loft in the first place. So we talked before, Mike and I were on the phone earlier, we were talking about a thing called smash factor. It's a phrase I loathe, smash factor. What smash factor is, if you swing a club at 100 miles an hour and hit a golf ball squarely, the golf ball will fly out at 150 miles an hour. So it comes out 1.5 times your club head speed. That 1.5 times is called your smash factor. Now, smash factor, let's say I swung a sandwich at 100 miles an hour. The ball leaves much slower because it rides up the face of the loft. So we get more of an oblique strike, but we want that strike with the sandwich. We want the height on the sandwich to create the spin and the height on the shot. If we have too much loft on the ball and we get 100 miles an hour speed, the club ball rides at the face and doesn't fly forwards as fast as possible. So when we have a very square face, like a putter, we can actually get that ball to fly off the face as fast as possible than the limits of physics, really, up to the limits of physics, I beg your pardon, because there's no oblique, there's no loft on the putter face, and so it can't ride anywhere, it just flies straight off the face. So that's why I was saying to you before about smash factor is not a great thing, really. Ball speed is much more important thing. But what Lee Cox, one of the world's long drive coaches, he's always praising Bryson DeChambeau because he's saying, look, he's taken advantage of all the science, he's built himself up, he's worked extremely hard, he's taken massive risks on getting there, and all of a sudden now he's hitting the ball so much further than everybody else. So he deserves that sort of that benefit.
Yeah, what he's done, amazing, really. Like to transform what he's done in that amount of time is unbelievable.
It's absolutely incredible.
His average ball speed was like, I think before he started bulking, I think his ball speed they were saying was like maybe 105, 180.
What is it now?
Now it's like he's up to 200.
He does get to 200. Yeah. I'll tell you, one of his biggest fans is Nick Faldo, which is really interesting. Faldo, that's sort of 6'4", big, strong guy, very physical. He's always on the range saying, wow, look at Bryson's ball speed, look at Bryson. Faldo was known for swinging slowly and hitting the ball, for what he thought was more accurately. But of course, you look at DeChambeau, he's accurate per yard travel because he hits the ball so far with the square club face, the ball's going to travel a very long way. And when it does go left and right, he doesn't care. I mean, there's a par 5 at Augusta, which he's
passed all the trouble anyway.
Well, it's the 13th at Augusta now. He's trying to hit it to the 14th tee. And then he's going to try and hit a sandwich in, drive sandwich into a par 4. Now, this is a question which comes up all the time. Cohen said, do you think his body at risk of injury? Well, you answer that question first of all. What injuries do you get when you're practicing hard, working hard on your game? What injuries outside of your military injury are you getting from golf?
Me?
Yeah.
So, like, I sort of, because I do hit balls, is my lower back. And that's about it, really. That eases off with the more balls I hit, the less it hurts. So I just hit more.
And so do you...
to be fair, if I train right, and if I, put that training into my swing, I don't really get injuries. I just get little niggles,
Well, there's two parts to that. The first is if you look at how many of the world's top golfers have very, very long lives. Hogan died, I think, well into his 80s. Sam Snead was 91, I think. Gary Player teed off at the Masters for the ceremony, the opening ceremony. The club head 85, and the club head speeding. He whipped that club head speed. He gave it a great crack. Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, that was no joke. Nicholas looked his age. But they're all fit for their particular sport. Now, you've got to think that the question about DeChambeau, will he get injured? He'll get injured because he gets injured like any other guy will get injured. They'll all have some injury at some stage of their career, which they'll sort of control with drugs or with legal drugs, obviously, or they'll control with exercise or rest or sort of rehabilitation. So yes, he'll get injured, just like the rest of them will do. But they've all got a bit of a shoulder issue. They've all got a bit of a wrist issue. They've got a knee issue. Everyone's going through something on the tour. And again, I remember an article from Phil Mickelson's coach, Butch Harmon. He said, what you don't know about Mickelson is that his arthritis is really bad. If he sits in a car and drives to a tournament for 4 hours, it takes him about 3 or 4 minutes to actually get himself out of the car. He's so stiff. So Mickelson is pumped up full of sort of drugs that help his body loosen up a little bit before he goes and plays. So that the pressure of a golf swing, the intensity of a golf swing, the longevity of their work, you know yourself, hitting ball after ball after ball after ball, they're all going to get injured at some stage. I think Adam Scott was the first guy who really put in a schedule of his tournament schedule, saying, well, I want to have some rest weeks because I don't want to get injured. So he would say that the rest was as important as the hard work anyway.
That's it. If you can train and recover at the same time, I mean, you limit your injuries. I mean, he's clever enough to know what he's doing. You don't get that creep about knowing what you're doing. So he's obviously got great recovery program going on as well.
Yeah, there's no way he's just gone to a gym and thought, oh, I'll try that out. He must have had a team of people who've been working on his conditioning.
Yeah, I mean, he's got his dietitians, everyone. He eats. Like, have you seen what he eats?
No, I've not seen it.
Crazy. He has like 7 protein shakes a day, like 2 steaks, like 14 eggs. He's like,
Is that much?
The only thing that's gonna like impact him is if he stops training, because it's just gonna go to blubber.
So if he's putting that, say 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 calories a day into his system, he has to burn that off at the same time, but then turn it into muscle as well. Right?
Yeah.
But Cohen's just made.
He stops.
But Cohen's just made a great point here. He tried to drive the third hole about 30 minutes ago. Now, how long is the third hole at Augusta? I was trying to think.
353 yards it was.
Okay, and he lost the ball, went to bogey ground, and had to go back to tee and made a triple bogey. So when he's on and when it's on, distance is absolutely key, because what all the stats prove to us now, and there's some great statisticians out there. The chap called Lou Stagner, L-O-U is his Christian name, and S-T-A-G-N-E-R. And what Lou Stagner does all the time is he analyzes all the stats on the pros, and he says, look, it's okay to miss green. It's okay to do this. It's okay to miss fairways. He says, because you will get better scores. And what DeChambeau's proving here now is that if he plays the next 10 Masters in this fashion, I think the ball as far as possible, he'll win 2 of them. Yeah, if he doesn't win 8 of them, then yeah. 100%. Yeah. Now the thing is, unless they do something about the ball, which is possible, or do something about the length of the clubs or the changes and what have you. Now, if he wins,
did you see that thing with Faldo, what he was on about the clubs specifically?
He was saying take a minimum loft and then also a minimum shaft length, wasn't he?
Minimum length, because Mickelson this week he's got 48-inch driver shaft in.
Has he really?
With a 6-degree head.
Well, there you go. They're all doing what Cohen watched with Lee Cox, his coach. Lee Cox in the Shire. I didn't know Mickelson had done it as well.
Yeah, doing the long drive.
In
the other context, what's his name? Vines? Is it Vines? There's the old boy. He shot like 3 under yesterday. I can't remember his name. But his average drive throughout the day was 247 yards.
247.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
That was his average drive, and he shot 2 under.
But the thing is, he would have carried that ball 247 as well. There was no roll yesterday, was there? So if he's shooting 247, but he shot 2 under par.
Yeah, and it's just proven the contrast of a big hitter and a very short hitter. You can shoot the same scores, you know.
You can. Now, what the stats prove though is that over time, the longer hitter should have more chance of making more birdies because the golf course is short. Larry Mize, it was Larry Mize who shot 2 under.
Larry Mize, that's it. Yeah.
Now he's a former winner, of course. But I've seen him play live as well. Honestly, it looks like he's swinging in slow motion. It's so syrupy. He's 62 years of age, but a fit 62 as well, right? There's no fat on him at all. But he swings a very slow, syrupy rhythm. And I was thinking, if you take someone like Larry Mize and Nick Faldo, if they were playing today, they'd still be champion golfers today because they'd take advantage of what they know, what we all know now. But back then, Larry Mize, the old golf ball, the old clubs, the old shafts and what have you, couldn't swing them as fast and get the same control. So they played to their optimum ability on the equipment that they had, and also the knowledge that they had. The difference is now, if you're...
I find that fascinating that someone that's average drives 340 and someone that's 100 yards behind them can shoot the same score, which is a credit to why he was a champion years ago.
Yeah, but think of that as well. It's a great point. You think of that. If he's 100 yards behind him, that's about 8 clubs difference, isn't it?
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
It's crackers. It's crackers. Now that's like that. That's like saying if you were to sort of... That's like, let's say Larry Myers will be hitting a 3-iron and Bryson's hitting a sandwich.
Yeah, that's the difference.
Every hole, incredibly.
Literally was the difference, yeah.
Now, when you're out on the tour now, are you seeing guys bulking up, hitting the ball further? Are you seeing them sort of just going at it and just lumping the ball, or are you seeing...
Yeah, I've started noticing a lot, and I'm trying it as well, believe it or not. So my aim this year is I want to get my ball speed up to about it's at 168 at the moment.
That's incredible.
The driver, which is good for me, but I want to get more because I just want to get up to around, like, I only want 5 or 6 miles an hour, but I'm at that stage where that's a lot to ask.
Well, absolutely right, because getting 5 or 6 miles an hour on slow swing speed is actually quite easy. Getting 5 or 6 miles an hour on fast swing speed is difficult work. Do you measure your strike on the face? Do you put tape on the face and measure that?
Yeah, I just use
hairspray.
Foot spray.
Yeah, the foot spray, yeah, perfect. Yeah, because that's a massive indicator. So the same club head speed will give you a very different ball speed to different strikes, won't it?
Yeah.
So if you just look at...
Exactly. So, like I've noticed, I'm a little bit of a centre toe. I am at the moment.
Yeah.
So I'm just it's a great strike, but I'm just that little bit centre toe.
Okay, so if you look at the way a golf club looks there, this is a rescue wood. I've not got a driver here, but if we draw across here, then one would think, the middle of that club face is about there, let's say. That's exactly where the sweet spot is. It doesn't necessarily mean the ball will fly the fastest from there. It might feel the best, but we have what's also called a hot spot. So you might have a sweet spot where it feels the best. The hot spot is actually high and towards the toe anyway. So if you look at the heat maps on the pros' faces when they've been using TrackMan, that heat map tends to be center towards the toe. Now, just to give you an idea, right? I went and had one of the launch events for TaylorMade's new drivers and what have you. And they were talking us through the factory process. Fascinating story, this. They talking us through the factory process. And what they were doing was that they mass-produced, let's say, 100,000 heads, right? They then have to measure every single one of those heads to see if it's conforming. If a club is too powerful, then it's illegal. All the machine does is it bounces like a ball bearing off the face. And if the ball bearing springs off the face too fast, relative to the parameters that we're allowed to use, if it comes off the face too fast, then that club is now too hot, it's too powerful. Now that club then goes straight to the tour. Believe it or not, right? It goes straight to the tour. So it's an illegal club and it's too powerful. But what they do is they soften it so it just creeps back in to the limit of what's physically allowable. So the pros have got these illegal clubs which they rein just back in to become legal again. The mass market clubs, the main body of clubs, which are all sort of well within range of being legal, that's what goes out to retailers and what have you. And then they trash the ones which just don't work at all. So what's interesting for you, Mike, is that your ball speed might be faster from top toe anyway, because that might be the hottest part of the club. Now, what we do know from the manufacturers is that the clubs don't all come out perfectly all the time. Whilst they're mass produced, they don't all come out with the perfect amount of loft on. It might say 9 degrees on the sole of the club, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's exactly 9 degrees of loft on that club.
Yeah, so because mine's straight off the tour track, off the Mizuno tour track.
Yep.
So mine says 9.5, but it is actually 9.1. So that's what it's come out as.
So that's quite a big tolerance. That's quite a big error, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but they've got on like 9.2, 9.3, 9.4. They've got them in literally a point of a degree all the way up through.
That's fascinating. Huh?
Yeah, I've just got the new anti-seconds. Yeah, they've upped my a different shaft this year. So I just got the new ST200, and it's nice. But they've just upped me to the new Even Flow Riptide. So it's
Okay.
small batch one. I love it.
So what weight is that? 65, 70 grams or something?
It's 6.5 TX 65.
65 grams. May I see the head again, please? Wow, look at that.
Yeah, it's nice.
Beautiful, eh? I mean, they make such good kit.
The hot spot in these
are
literally just off centre, so literally like there.
Just towards the toe?
Yeah, just a little bit high toe, centre high toe, and it's that's where the optimum thing is, the optimum
Sweet.
effect is.
Yeah. Cohen's made a good point here. He said, I've heard a couple of instances where Tours Pros clubs have been tested and banned from being used because they're non-conforming. What happens is how the governing bodies maintain the manufacturers making sure they do conform their clubs all the time is they'll go out, let's say Callaway go and produce 1 million golf clubs and send them all out to the shops and retailers all over America. The governing bodies then send out their testers out into like middle of Wyoming. Yeah, they go into a shop, they buy a driver, they then go and test it. It's a very easy test as well. It literally is a ball bearing, and if it bounces off correctly, it's fine. So they buy one and they test it. They might then buy 3 or 4 locally just to make sure they're all the same sort of thing. If one of them's wonky, they then buy up in a massive radius all the drivers, and they test them all overnight, and then the manufacturers get to know that if they're illegal, they can't sell them and they have to withdraw the entire stock. So there's no way the manufacturers don't test them first of all and send them out into the market without saying, okay, well, these clubs are absolutely conforming, because otherwise it costs them an absolute fortune. So what Cohen said there, I think.
What's his name got disqualified, didn't he? The Callaway player, I can't remember who it was, but his was like the face was so thin on it that because they actually, I don't know how they did it, but yeah, he got disqualified for having an illegal driver.
Wow, so it just shows that they must, most of the pros kit must only just be conforming. It must be testing the limits.
Standard shuffling, that's who it was.
Wow,
yeah, he got pulled out. So.
Wow,
crazy.
Because back in the 80s, it was all about grooves. There was a massive thing all about grooves in the 80s on the irons of the clubs, because some pros were getting an inordinate amount of spin on the ball. And then when they changed the grooves, there was quite a few players. I think Harrington might be one of them, who lost an awful lot of control when the grooves changed. And they weren't doing anything which was illegal. It's just that their grooves were giving them an advantage. The manufacturers caught up with it and said, well, that's a huge advantage. Then the governing bodies looked at it and said, well, actually, we looks like we made a bit of a mistake here. We have to change those grooves over. But the ball makes a huge difference as well. If you look at, I think it was Mark O'Meara and one other player who out of nowhere all of a sudden had Nick Price. O'Meara won 2 or 3 majors in the early 90s or mid 90s, and then Nick Price won the same, I think late 90s, early 2000s or whatever it was. And they both moved to the Bridgestone ball and just completely revolutionized the game. They both found a ball which suited them down to the ground. They found so much more distance out of it. That ball's open to everybody. It just showed that the key to the tech is, number one, you can measure this stuff now. So when you go to the tour truck, they can say, well, it's 9.5 degrees, but actually it's 9.1. That's a big difference, huge difference. And the second thing as well now with all the kit the guys have got is just how they're prepared to go right to the limit now. 48 inches on a driver, they're doing brilliant stuff with that now.
Oh, it's crazy. Because I know DeChambeau obviously started that with a 48 inch, but I don't think he put it in play, but Mickelson put it straight in play.
Fascinating. There's a Harmo Sandlin back in the late 90s. I think he might even have played Ryder Cup. He certainly won some events. And he had like a 48 inch driver back in the day, but he was proper bonkers, this guy. And it was all over the park. I mean, he couldn't control it. Wait and still make them controllable.
That's how I control this. So Matt on the tour track, he put like hot glue in the. I think it might have been because I hit the ball into water and it was just going so high.
Is that spin or is that loft?
Yeah, hot glue into the front just to keep it down a bit.
But do you think you were hitting the ball high because of the spin or the loft?
It was both. both. So I use one where I was on a 10.5.
That's a big change.
Yeah, and like I was just creating, because of the shaft I was using, I just created so much spin. Like I was getting 3,500 RPM out of the driver, and it was just going up and up and up.
Yeah, that's impossible. If you
Really
the pros looking for like 200, but even that number's.
So I'm now at 2.4 with this one, consistently 2.4, which is
that's brilliant.
Perfect.
But even DeChambeau, he's getting some of his down to 1.15, 1.6, 1.700. So God knows how.
Have you ever noticed that? So like I tried going the other way with less spin.
Yeah.
Like I had a low spin head, low spin shaft, and I just couldn't stop it cocking left.
Yeah. You can't.
It has the opposite effect.
That's right. Absolutely right. Because it's got no backspin, not enough backspin on it. It sort of oscillates the ball.
It's going left. It's horrible.
Yeah. Well, listen.
That's not for me.
Well, listen, Mike. That's been great tonight. Thanks ever so much for spending the time. I've learned a lot as well. It's always good to talk to pros, good to talk to people who are playing. Obviously, I'm at the sort of coaching end of things. I'm not always talking with players, so it's good to talk to players because things move very, very quickly in your world. So it's good to catch up with you. We'll do this again sometime soon. Thanks ever so much for tuning in, guys. Thanks for your input, Cohen. That's been great, actually. I've learned a bit from you as well there. So listen, guys, keep your chin up. Keep yourselves positive. Keep doing stuff. You know where I am, richard.harrison@roehamptonclub.co.uk, or send Will an email with anything you want to talk about, any topic you want to talk about. Hope you all enjoy the Masters. We've got down there DJ, we've got Answer, I picked Ram, and Richard picked Paul Casey. So we'll see how we all go. Good luck to all of you.
Cheers, Richard.
Thanks very much, Mike. See you next time.
Okay, mate. Bye.
See you guys. Thanks, Mike.